In this episode, you'll discover why delaying the backswing is hard to do.
Feel the grip of the oar handle, smooth yet firm in your hands. Taste the salt of your own sweat and the occasional splash of water. It's all part of the journey. Welcome to another episode of Faster Masters Rowing Radio. Each week, our host, Masters rowing coach Rebecca Caro, dives deep into the world of Masters rowing. Whether you're on the water or in the gym, join us to become a faster master. Let's go rowing.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Faster Masters Rowing Radio. I'm Rebecca Caro, and today we're picking up a really knotty topic: why delaying your backswing during the power phase of the rowing stroke is hard to do. Now, this topic came about because I got to see this fabulous photo, thanks to Gunnar Rees, who photographed the Euro Masters Regatta and generously shared his Flickr stream of photographs. Take a look at this crew. And for those who are listening on audio only, you can go and pick up the image from YouTube or from our blog. But what you're seeing is a women's double. They've got their blades in the water. They're getting close to their legs being straight in the power phase. Their legs are beautifully aligned. If you look at the amount of bend in their knee, it's nearly identical. They both still have their shoulders sternwards of their hips, so they're leaning forwards. Their arms are extended straight. The oar angles are not yet at 90 degrees square off to the side of the boat. So this is a fantastically strong position. In order to get to this precise moment when the photograph was taken, these athletes needed to put the oars in the water and push with their legs without activating their back. And they have probably generated a large amount of boat speed because of their skill in this area. Now, I see an awful lot of masters rowers who don't row like this. Now, sometimes the reason is that they can't get their shoulders forward of their hips. Sometimes the reason is that they didn't start the power phase using their legs. So why is it that this is really hard to do? The simplest answer is that pulling with your arms is easier. We have in daily life a lot of practice activating our hands and our arms. And at the catch, what you're trying to do is to feel connection with the water. You want to know that your blade is buried, and when you activate your body, that you're then locking the spoon, the curved tip of the blade, into the water. You're loading it up preparatory to pushing the tip of the blade past the boat. And if you pull with your arms, and you will see an enormous amount of beginners particularly take the stroke first by bending their arms, they do this because it's much easier to feel the connection with the water. And the corollary to that is, if you pull with your arms and then lift your shoulders or lift your chin, which then also tends to move your shoulders back towards the bow, you really feel a load. You feel the workload on the spoon. Now, what these athletes are mistaking is that rowing is a pulling sport, not a pushing sport. And rowing is 100% a pushing sport for the vast majority of the stroke. If you've ever been on a rowing machine that has a force curve, and people will know that I'm a Row Perfect RP3 fan of, their force curve is quite large and very sensitive. So in real time, you can see what you have done and the effect it has on how fast the flywheel is spinning. If you row with legs only, you get about 60% of your power. If you then add your back, you add another 25-30% of your power. So you're then up to nearly 90% of the total force curve has been produced before you do your arm draw. And your arm draw really adds very little, 5 to 10% of power right at the end of the stroke. When you think about the rowing stroke itself, you want to feel that connection. And yet the movement that we're asking for, which is from this beautiful photograph, the leg drive first, it's a really unnatural movement. And so what we have to consider is our big muscles and our small muscles. Our big muscles are our legs, particularly quadriceps in your thighs, but also don't forget your calf muscles. The next biggest muscle set that we use in rowing are your glutes, your bum, then your back muscles, so your lats, which are the diagonal muscles that go from your shoulder blade down to the parallel column of muscle that's either side of your spine. And the smallest muscles are your biceps, your triceps on the front and the back of your upper arm, your forearms, and lastly, your hands. The muscles in your hands are useful for rowing because, of course, we use them for feathering and squaring. We also use our wrists a little bit as well. Now, in daily life, we use our small muscles a lot. They are really easy for us to activate and they fire quicker. We can really quickly grab things. Think for yourself. If you're looking at your kitchen table and there's a ball on the table and it's rolling towards the edge of the table, you know how quickly and easily you can reach your hand out, get your hand lower than the table surface and catch that ball as it rolls off the edge of the table. You're really good at activating the arm to reach and your hand to grab and grip onto that ball. Your quads and glutes are much slower muscles to activate. So we have to train them in rowing. We are less habituated to making them move a lot and to move quickly in our daily lives. So connecting the handle of the oar through the foot stretcher is a really unfamiliar movement, and we need to train it in order to make it happen. So think about the big to small muscles activation. The first activation that you want after you've placed the blade in the water is your calves to push your heels down onto the foot stretcher, because remember, your heels lift as you approach full compression. And then your quadriceps join in and start to push your knees downwards, trying to straighten your legs. When your legs have got to pretty much the position that the ladies are at in this photograph, so your legs are 3/4 gone, this is the moment where you start to activate your glutes, so your big muscles in your bum, because they are the hinge that connects your legs to your back. And you use your glutes to sustain pressure on the foot stretcher while you swing your back. Remember, if you lose pressure on the foot stretcher, you are no longer connected to the boat and you're no longer accelerating the boat. Your feet are the only part of your body that's actually connected to a fixed point that is part of the boat that hasn't got movement in it. Yes, you're sitting on a seat, but the seat can move. Yes, your handles are connected to the oar lock, but the oar lock is also a pivot, a swivel, and that has movement in it. So your feet are the one fixed point. So your glutes activate to help you lever your back off your legs. And as your back starts to activate, you then draw with your arms so they activate off the back movement as well. If you look really closely at this photograph, the stroke girl has maybe bent her right arm just a tiny little bit. But to be honest, this is a tiny finesse, and the chances are this photograph was taken in the final stages of a race where the athletes are getting tired. This is a very impressive crew. Secretly, I'm hoping that someone will get in touch and go, that was us. Now, back to why delaying the backswing is hard to do. We need to connect to the foot stretcher as early as possible in the power phase, and we need to connect our handle through to the foot stretcher. So the handle connection goes up our arms, down our back, along our legs, and down to our feet. Now, if we don't delay the backswing, if we take the catch by either bending the arms or swinging the shoulders, just a tiny little bend in the arms, why is this an issue? So the problems it causes are fundamentally to do with how you deliver your power through the stroke. We've got three basic broad suites of muscles: our leg muscles, our back muscles, and our arm muscles that we can use to accelerate the boat. I'm kind of ignoring the glutes at this stage, but let's just keep it simple: legs, back, and arms. The problems caused by taking the catch with your small muscles in your arms and your back is that you can only use each muscle once in every stroke. You can't activate it twice. So if you have swung your back to take the catch, you then have no backswing in the second half of the power phase when you are supposed to be swinging your back. You're already leaning backwards and your legs are not yet fully straight. So you'll definitely have seen photographs of athletes leaning back at about half slide. The other problem that it causes is that it prevents you from really activating your leg drive. You find that although the legs do straighten, they do it in a sort of drifty, vague way rather than a proactive, dynamic way. And if you're not activating your leg muscles, you're probably not really using them to their maximal extent. And so not activating your legs then takes away potentially 60% of your possible total power. So that's quite a big issue. The drifting legs, you almost certainly will not be activating and using your glutes. If your back is already swung, how can you activate your glutes in the second half of the power phase? Because you've really got nothing to activate them against. They are most effective when you're leaning forwards with your shoulders forwards of your hips. The other thing is that I think there's a correlation, not causation, but a correlation between the fact that at the catch, the water is slower. It's slower because the boat has slowed down. It's also slower because of the angle of attack of your spoon relative to the side of the boat. That is a topic that I've covered in a previous episode. Get in touch if you want to know what that's all about. But the slower water really needs to be addressed in power terms from your slower big muscles. So you need to use these big muscles, even though they don't necessarily activate super fast. You activate them into that slower water, and then you accelerate the spoon of the blade through the water to build speed in the boat, at which point you can then introduce your secondary and tertiary sets of muscles. So what's the solution to delaying your backswing? Mostly it's training yourself to use these big muscles, learning what it feels like to activate those big muscles in your quads, in your glutes, at an earlier point in the rowing stroke. Now, if you can activate them then you know what it feels like when you grip the water using your feet and the blade in the water, and using your calf muscles to get your heels down rather than grabbing with your hands or swinging your shoulders. If you can do that, then you know what it feels like. That is the beginning of learning how to proactively activate your big muscles earlier in the stroke, make them fire more strongly, more confidently, and then we can layer our smaller muscles on top of those big muscles that have already been activated. So let's just finish by enjoying again this beautiful technique of these ladies in the double, and look again at how their legs are nearly 3/4 down. They've still got a little bend in their knees, and they are just at the point where they're going to be activating their backs. Possibly stroke has begun to activate her back. She's just sitting up a tiny little bit more than bow, but the photograph is not 90 degrees square off, so that also might be slightly deceptive because of the camera angle. Either way, they're demonstrating exactly what we should be doing and what the rest of us need to aspire to do. Till next time.
We are part of the Rowing Chat Podcast Network. Please tell your fellow rowers about the show. If you've learned just one helpful thing from today's episode, please consider supporting the show for as little as $1 per month by visiting fastermastersrowing.com/podcast.